Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and now we will dive into the top news of this day. Chernobyl, Fukushima. Now we have another Technogen catastrophe, Nova Kakhovka. Only today's morning, Russian occupiers detonated explosives planted in the dam of the Kakhovska hydropower plant. The areas downstream began to be flooded by the Dnipro River. The destruction of the Kakhovska hydropower plant dam is a man-made catastrophe organized by the Russian occupiers. Flooding of huge areas occurs rapidly within hours. More than 80 settlements are in the flood zone, in particular some districts of Kherson. Evacuation operations have begun and rescue of the civilian population. The most damage from flooding is to low-lying residents of the left bank of the Dnipro River, which are under occupation. Any attempts to blame Ukraine for sabotage are unfounded. The Russians themselves mined the dam and blew it themselves. After all, Kremlin methods do not change. On August 18th, 1941, when the 274th Rifle Division of the Soviet troops began to flee in panic from the right bank of the Dnieper River under the pressure from the offensive actions of the Nazi Germany, Red Army soldiers Petrov and Yepov blew up the dam of the largest in Europe, the Zaporizhia hydroelectric power plant. To prevent the passage of German troops by the left bank of the Dnieper, 82 years later, on June 6, 2023, their grandchildren, who repeatedly said that we can do it again, did the same, but a little further south along the Dnipro, to the Kakhovska hydropower plant. The Russians once again proved to the whole world that they are monkeys with a grenade. You never know what to expect from them. But Russia's detonation of the Kakhovska hydropower plant will not only slow down the Ukrainian offensive in this direction, but will also lead to a huge man-made disaster in the region. Even earlier, the occupiers threatened to blow up the dam and blackmailed that they would do this in order to interfere with the Ukrainian counterattack. In the fall of 2022, they damaged the first time part of the dam, which led to a decrease in the water level in Kakhovsky Reservoir. Kyiv publicly warned about the threat of tragedy back in the fall last year. President Volodymyr Zelensky personally informed the European Council and called to organize an international observation mission at the facility. The possible purpose of the terrorist attack is to flood the islands in the lower reaches of the Dnipro, which were liberated by the defense forces of Ukraine the day before, so that prevent a further counteroffensive on the left bank.
President Zelensky immediately convened the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. Ukrainian law enforcement and emergency services are working hard to mitigate the consequences and save lives. Ukraine calls an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council and brings the issue of the Russian Terrorist Act to the International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors. We will also cooperate with the EU Civil Protection Mechanism and other international mechanisms to mitigate consequences and bring Russia to account. In light of developments on the battlefield, Russia's deliberate and long-planned terrorist act turned the man-made flood into a weapon. The harm to the environment is of particular concern. Entire ecosystems are facing long-term and irreversible harm because of the floods. Animals in the Nova Kakhovka Zoo have already died in the rising water, and this is only the beginning of harm for fauna in the south of Ukraine, along the Dnipro River and in the Black Sea.
Another probable reason is the desire to inflict the maximum losses to Ukraine in conditions where the occupiers have lost hope of saving its control over the south of Ukraine. The Russian terrorist attack will have long-term economic and ecological consequences for Ukraine. Thousands of animals and ecosystems will be destroyed. Decommissioning of the Kakhovska hydropower plant may stop the supply of water to the Crimea through the North Crimean Canal. The world once again found itself on the brink of a nuclear catastrophe after all Zaporizhia nuclear power plant has lost its source of cooling. The man-made disaster at the Kakhovska HPP is equivalent to the use of weapons of mass destruction. The world should do that. This attitude and reaction. The Kremlin continues a campaign of ecocide in Ukraine. Russia is waging a genocidal war against the Ukrainian people, seeks to kill as many Ukrainians as possible, and save the lives of the rest unbearable. While Putin is in the Kremlin, all humanity is in danger. Russia should be recognized as a terrorist state. Secretary of State for Foreign Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the United Kingdom, James Cleverley, came with a visit to Kyiv. During the meeting with the President of Ukraine, politicians discussed important topical issues: Ukraine's expectations from the NATO summit in Vilnius, promotion of the Ukrainian peace formula, and preparation of the global summit on the implementation, as well as the London International Conference on the Reconstruction of Ukraine, informed Volodymyr Zelensky in his social media. Also, the president wrote that we are very grateful for the support that the UK has provided and continues to provide to Ukraine. In recent weeks, Zelensky held talks with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. There was a direct dialogue and very important agreements they reached. I thanked for all the defense support provided to Ukraine and especially for the Storm Shadow missiles, which have proven to be extremely effective on the front line. We continued the conversation about a new coalition to protect life, the Patriot Coalition. Step by step, we are moving with our partners to make this coalition as effective in protecting life and freedom as all our other defense coalitions that have already been established. British Foreign Minister James Cleverley said that Ukraine can count on the support of his country. The visit of the British minister to the Ukrainian capital took place on the eve of the conference on the restoration of Ukraine, which is scheduled to be held in London at the end of this month. It is planned to discuss the reconstruction and strengthening of Ukraine's economic prospects there, CNN wrote. I should note that this trip is Cleverley's second visit to Kyiv and the fourth meeting between British high-ranking officials and President Zelensky in recent weeks. Cleverley also met with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba to discuss how best to support Ukraine from the battlefield to bank guarantees. And that's what partnership means. A few hours after the Russian terrorist attack, British Foreign Minister James Cleverley, who is in Ukraine, reacted to the destruction of the dam. I've heard reports and the risk of flooding. It is too early to make any meaningful assessments of the details, but it is worth remembering that the only reason this is a problem at all is Russia's unprovoked, full-scale invasion of Ukraine, he said. The Ukrainian military is recapturing our territories near Bakhmut. On Monday, our troops advanced in several directions, near Orikhovo-Vasilyevka and Paraskovyevka, up to 1,600 meters, near Ivanovsky and Klishchivka, from 100 to 700 meters. However, the battles between the Russian military are more interesting. Mercenaries of the PMC Wagner entered into battle with the military personnel of the Russian Ministry of Defense, allegedly while retreating from Bakhmut. The Wagnerites noticed that in the rear, a group of Russian military personnel were mining roads. When they tried to clear mines, the Wagnerite came under fire. A battle ensued, and as a result, the mercenaries captured an officer of the Russian Regular Army, commander of the 72nd Motorized Rifle Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Roman Venevitin. At the same time, Chechen commanders and officials unanimously began to criticize the owner of the Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Such a move could be an attempt to discredit and undermine the authority of the mercenary leader. This is reported by the Institute of the Study of War. Thus, a response flurry of criticism and personal insults from the Chechen commanders caused the words of Prigozhin that he did not know about the new positions of the Chechen units, and the Chechen troops would capture individual settlements and not the entire Donetsk region. In an interview with Voice of America, experts say that Yevgeny Prigozhin has gone a taste as a military leader and public politician, but the Kremlin may have other plans. According to Meduza, Prigozhin travels all over Russia with press conferences all at once. According to the journalists of the publication, the owner of the Wagner Group gave 3 press conferences in 2 days at the end of May in Yekaterinburg, Vladivostok and Novosibirsk, presenting the project Wagner Second Front. It is not clear what kind of project this is, but Prigozhin's thesis at press conferences sound like a political program: general mobilization, transfer of the Russia to martial law, reach Kyiv, the return of the death penalty and a planned economy, as if in the 19th century. Although if you look at the photo from the outback, Russians still live there. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated. Subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support really matters. Goodbye.